I think success is when I have the freedom of financial to choose to do whatever I want, to live wherever I want, and spend time with people that I want.
He turned 500 bucks into a $15 million company at only 23 years old, and that was just his warm up. Today's guest immigrated from Hong Kong as a kid. He built a meme empire with 30 million followers before he could legally drink, and is now reshaping how the biggest consumer brands in the world think about packaging. That may not sound very sexy, but I could tell you the story behind it is going to be pretty cool. So stay tuned. Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and this is episode number 348. My guest is another Jason. This is Jason Wong. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of Packing Duck and one of the most resourceful young business builders that I've come across, and I've interviewed a lot of people. He immigrated from Hong Kong to America when he was only 8 years old. He started hustling in the back of restaurants as a kid, and he launched his first real business when he was just the tender age of 14. And by 23, as I said a minute ago, he turned 500 bucks, that little investment, into Doe Lashes, which was a beauty brand valued at $15 million in its first year. But that was just the beginning. Through his experiences building multiple brands, he kept running into the same problem over and over again about how packaging was slow, it was overpriced, and it was broken. So he did what all entrepreneurs do. He did what people like you and me do. He fixed it. Packing Duck, which is his custom packaging manufacturer, hit 8 figures in revenue without a single dollar of outside capital. And now he's serving over 2,500 brands, including things like Fiji Water and Quest Nutrition. So Jason Wong, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Well, you went from selling candy in school to running a packaging company that serves some of the biggest consumer brands on the planet. And you're only, you're 28 now? Is that right?
That's correct.
And most people at your age are still figuring out their first real job. So what did you see at 14 years old that most adults completely miss about business?
I think I was just around business at a young age. I came here when I was 8. I was working in different families' restaurants. As an immigrant, we had to do whatever we can to survive in this country, and that's just work your ass off. And so I've always been in that spirit of working and working hard and putting time. And I think I was able to mature a little bit faster than my peers. So by the time I was 14, I had years of experience of making money. I got introduced to the internet and making money on the internet by a high school friend who led me to start a blog that eventually I think jump-started everything. And so, I wouldn't say I knew everything at 14, but I knew that the internet was the greatest chance for me to escape out of whatever hole I was in. I think prior to that, it was get a job and hopefully you can make 6 figures. And that was my ceiling. That's what I thought I could do. But at 14, I realized that, oh man, you can actually make $1,000 a month on the internet. You can make $5,000 a month on the internet. And that unlock was the greatest unlock for me personally.
Now you went on to build a Tumblr following of over 30 million people as a teenager. Most kids would, of course, just enjoyed the attention. But how did you look at that audience and think, man, I can build this into a business, or I can build a business on this idea?
Yeah, it started off as a hobby. So at 14, my friend introduced me to Tumblr. And back then on those blogs, you can put banner ads, you can make AdSense, you can run affiliate offers. So at 14, I started learning how to run affiliate marketing. And a lot of people on that platform, and this is 2014, so like back in the day, people were not looking at blogs as a business. There's definitely some people who are treating it as a business, but people on a platform called Tumblr is not treating it like a business. But I saw it as money. I saw every impression as money. And so I started buying other people's blogs. And because back on Tumblr, it's all faceless. It's like faceless YouTube channels nowadays. I was able to acquire these blogs to add them into my network and selling them at a bundle deal to advertisers. So one of my first few clients was a clothing company called Shein, which back in the day, they're a small guy, but now they're worth $80-90 billion. So it was through like these promotional deals I was able to first make some money, but also validate this business.
Well, you have a book called The Holy Meme Bible, which is like a coloring book. And you made, as I understand it, $250,000 before the product even existed. So
Yes.
what is it? And walk us through the moment about what it meant to build that and how you end up selling it.
Yeah. So when I was on Tumblr, the content that I promoted was memes and comedy. And like now when you go on Instagram, there's a lot of screenshots from Twitter of like funny things that happen on Twitter. But back in the day, it was actually screenshots from Tumblr. That was the originator for a lot of the content. And so I looked at it and I said, okay, there's really not a lot of ways to monetize it because people just put funny ideas and funny pictures on t-shirts and that was the end of it. But what if I changed the medium of what I put the things on? And so I got this idea from another coloring book. There was a curse word coloring book that went viral back in 2013 and 2014. So I was like, okay, great. Coloring book could be the new medium. And so I compiled all the funny things that happened that year. It was 2016. It was election year. And with election year, there's a lot of funny memes that come out of it. No matter which side of the party you are on, there's something fun. And so I made a maze going through Donald Trump's brain. I made hangman. I made crossword puzzles. I made coloring illustrations. But they're all just designs on a digital designs. I render what the book could look like without ever making the book. I just render like a mock-up of what the book looks like and I put it on Tumblr. I made a Shopify website and I started selling it for $9.99 and it just blew up. It went viral. I remember this was December 3rd. So it was Christmas time. It was perfect timing. Everyone was buying this for Christmas. And so in the span of 7 days, we did $250,000 without ever having a book. And then on day 8 and day 9, that was when I was scrambling to get the books printed and shipping it before.
So how did you do that? I mean, you get $250,000 of pre-orders. You don't even have the publisher, I'm assuming, or printer to get ready to do it. So how did you turn that into an actual product that you shipped on time?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, books are not rocket science. There's a ton of print shops around. I found one in San Francisco that can do a 4-day turnaround if I pay a rush fee. So I just pay, you know, every rush fee I can imagine and got it all out on time. I got those inventory shipped to my apartment and I was shipping those orders out by myself in my bedroom. And that was like really my first foray to like e-commerce at that scale. And before that, it was really small scale business. So that really put me into like, okay, I can do $1 million, $2 million a year off this one product and no one can really copy it.
Well, so what did you profit on that first $250,000 order?
We didn't have any marketing expense. My only marketing expense was my blog, which we own wholly. So I think out of the 250,000, I probably profited about 190 after you account for product costs and shipping costs. And
Wow.
then we did this for 5 more years. So there's 5 more edition of this book. That's a lot, bigger, better. We have a whole team working on it, and that spun out to its own product lab. So we had meme candles, we had meme bath bombs, we had a cookbook, and the recipes are based on what's trending, like popular memes here. At one point we made an orange chicken recipe off of Donald Trump. So there was a whole business that came out of it, but it was just because I made some funny pictures on the internet.
Man, that is fascinating. So I don't know if you know this or not. I only recently learned this, but Simon and Schuster, the book publishing company,
Mm,
started publishing their first thing they ever published was a book of crossword puzzles.
wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever read the book "Thou Shalt Prosper" by Daniel Lapin, but
Mm,
he tells the story of these two Jews, and because he's a rabbi who wrote the book, so he tells the power of Jewish thinking, and he said these two Jews, the last names were Simon and Schuster, got together and made a crossword puzzle book for I think it was his grandmother or somebody who
wow.
loved to do the Sunday crossword. So I'd be on to a whole new publishing company, man. Kids coloring books.
If I had more foresight, that's probably where I would have went to. But I knew that wasn't something I want to do forever. Like I don't want to be the meme guy. I want to put that as a chapter of my life. So eventually, I move into building a beauty brand off of the money that I made from the memes.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So Doe Lashes,
Hmm.
you started that. You had $500. You were
Hmm.
watching your girlfriend struggle with these uncomfortable false lashes, and a year later, you had a valuation done at 15 million bucks. So that's insane. So what did you do differently than every other beauty brand trying to break through?
I think in any success, there's always context, right? Like I think oftentimes people listen to podcasts, I listen to these headlines, like, oh shit, they did this, and let me just copy exactly what they did. We, I would say like to replicate what we did, you kind of just had to be there at the right place and right time. And our right place and right time was 2018 TikTok. That was when TikTok just started, and we were one of the first few beauty brands who got onto the platform. So I spent $500 to build this brand, not because I only had 500 in the bank account, but because I wanted to prove that you could build a brand new e-commerce business with very low cost. I did it. I did it the first time with the book, which didn't cost me any money. I want to do it again with a beauty brand, because there's a misconception that it costs a gigantic ton of money to build an e-commerce business. But I think with what resources we have now, that's not true anymore. So I built that as a case study with Shopify. I spent $500. 400 of that went into inventory, and the rest went into web domain, went to web hosting, and buying a $29 theme. Of the $400, I spent it on inventory, and I spent half of it to influencers, like nano influencers. A lot of brands were going after people with 50, 100,000 followers. I was going after people with 500 followers. And TikTok, as you're aware, when they first started, and even now, even if you have 500 followers, you could reach a million people. That was something that was non-existent on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform, right? On any other platform, you had to have a lot of people following you to get access to exposing those content to them. TikTok was not the case. So we got on TikTok when every other brand was dismissing it as a platform to lip sync and for teenagers to dance to music. We saw an opportunity for brands to get a lot of eyeballs for free. And so we grew from zero to 150,000 followers on TikTok in 8 months, purely just by giving people behind the scenes content of how the business was done. So like oftentimes people are pushing out polished content, like they want the brand to look nice. But we did the opposite of that. We gave them the ugly side of business. We showed them us packing orders. We show them us replying to customer complaints, feedback, and like the development process. So we really give them a lens of behind the scenes, and that's what blew us up. Um,
All right, so I got to go off script here for just a second. I got to ask you something. So you are, of all the guys I've talked to in the past year or so on this show, like you've gotten from concept and minimal investment to millions of dollars really, really fast. That's not normal. I hope you know you're not normal. Like that's not a normal thing. So if I said to you, "Hey, Jason Wong, I want you to look at what I'm doing,"
mhm.
and how would you advise someone? And I know you and I don't know each other. We just met today. You're in New York City. I'm in Nashville, so
Mhm.
we're not even in the same state. But if you said, "Okay, Jason, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to figure out how to go from where you're at today, which is not bad, and I'm going to take you to $250,000 of profit in 9 days, like you did with that coloring book, something crazy." Like,
Yeah.
what would you say that I need to do? Like, what would have to happen? Because I know entrepreneurs listen to this going to want to
Mhm.
know the answer to that as well.
I mean, at any type of business, it's just exposure. It's like thinking about what is the lowest hanging fruit that you can pull for the lowest cost to get your product in front of as many people as possible. And that answer changes depending on what product you're selling, whether you're B2B or B2C. But like the I would say like the way that I operate is I like to test things really fast, break them really fast, and then move on to the next thing if it doesn't work. And that's really how I'm able to, squeeze as much as I can in a short amount of time. But like, for as many success you've seen, there's like a ton more failures I've had that where it didn't work. So I can't say like what I'm doing is the magic bullet, right? Like out of 100 things I've launched in my lifetime, maybe 20 has worked. It's not a bad success rate, but I can't say I'm like the guy who can make anything happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the humility and the lack of or the not the lack of but the supreme self-awareness. So that is really good self-awareness. But 20% success rate on maybe $1 million projects is pretty dang good, because you're right, the failures outweigh the successes, many more times than I think we know. But I think it's interesting, man. I think there's a play, where you could just say, "Look, I'm going to take some questions. What do you got? I'm going to give you an idea of how to take it," and then they go and take it. Maybe you even do it for an equity play. So, like, I'll give you the ideas, but I get a piece of it. So,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
it's interesting.
that could work. And like I think the common thing between all the things that work is I before I started the companies, of the things that did work, really sat down and understand what is the total addressable market for what I'm doing. Like, is the product I'm building actually creating a solution for a white space in this market? Is there actually a
Mhm.
demand for it? So I'll give you an example. I just launched a Christian card game about 2 months ago. So it's based off a conversation card game. If you've seen things like We're Not Really Strangers, It's basically a card game that allows you to create small talks and have conversations with whoever you want to do. You can do it with your parents, you can do it with a date, you can do it with your friends. We made a Christian version of it, 150 questions of questions that we prayed over that we feel like it'll be great for you to ask in your youth groups, at churches, and with your friends and family. We launched that product 2 months ago. We're on track to do about $10 million this year off of one product, one single SKU. There's no other SKU, just one single card game, and we're going to launch a few more outside of that. The reason why we're able to go from $0 to $10 million in the first year is purely because before we even started this company, we sat down and understood exactly what is the gap this product fills, and then we also understood what is the content machine that we have to build to get this in front of as many people as possible. And we're doing this with no outside capital. Just we understand the market, we understand what is the market demands, and we create a product that fits that.
So you created this card game. I mean, obviously there's production cost that goes into it, but are you pre-selling it like you did the meme book before, so that you have capital to produce it?
We didn't pre-sell this one, so we made everything in my packaging factory because it's a card
Ah,
paper. So we made it ourselves. We get really low cost, and we just made enough for the first launch that if it didn't work out, so be it. It's only a few $1,000s down the drain, but it sold out in the first day. So we had to start cranking on restocks and whatnot. So we just restocked about a few days ago, and we're halfway through the inventory already. So it's one of those things where I think people were desperate for a product like that. People wanted to talk more about their spirituality. People wanted
mhm.
something that they can connect with their friends and family on, and we found the right product to facilitate that.
That's interesting. So the card game is going to do $10 million this year in 2026, going from concept to reality to $10 million in revenue. I'm assuming, is that what you meant by the 10 million?
Yep.
Yeah, and uh, so how are you? What's the marketing plan? Because that's it. Like, well, you did TikTok on doe lashes,
Mhm.
but how do you market this? You simply drop it on Amazon and run some meta ads. What'd you do?
So, I mean, ads is just one part, right? Like, ads is just adding fuel to a fire, but like, if the foundation isn't there, it will never catch on fire. So, what we did was we really put out a content archetype of all the different types of content that we can create. So, like, founders content, a founder who's the face of the brand, who's talking about their process of building this card game. Then we're doing like street interviews of people playing these card games in person in the real world and then documenting their reaction towards that. And then we also have ads around different angles. So we have ads of playing it with your parents and like unlocking different conversations that you might not have your parents unless this card was facilitating it. We have angles of ads of you playing with your youth groups, with couples and whatnot. So we create avatars of who our ideal customers are, and we make ads that that um, that targets this particular buyer persona. Um, and we're churning out so much content on a daily day basis that we're able to understand what works and what doesn't work and do it at scale.
Interesting. You've said that each of your businesses, bounced off the previous one, and that the problems in one venture became the opportunity in the next venture. So we're going to get into your packaging business, Packing Duck. How did running doe lashes and Saucy, or any of these other ventures lead to directly to packaging?
um, every single thing that I've ever built in my life had to come in packaging. So I really just sat down and said, what is that one thing that I've used many, many years that I've had a lot of problems with? And I built the company off of my own frustrations because when I was dealing with overseas factories, it was just very difficult. It was difficult to get through my ideas. It was difficult to know if I can trust them. And so after I exited from my CPG companies, I went straight into being a supplier because I understood what the pain points were exactly. But also, I knew that if I started this company, I would have a head start because of all the people that I knew from the CPG space as a founder myself. So our first 50 clients were people that I knew already. Most factories are not able to get a head start like that. We also have a head start because the factory that I eventually bought was a factory that we were using for the last few years and we were happy with them. So basically, I went to the factory and I said, hey, how much business are you guys doing right now? And where are your main customers? And they said, okay, we do XYZ in revenue, but we're only dealing with the APAC region because we don't know how to sell to Americans. And I was like, oh, that's easy. I know how to sell to Americans. I know how to sell to Europeans. What would you say if I triple your revenue in the next 6 months? Can I buy a piece of the factory? And so for the next 6 months, I was just introducing deals, I was introducing clients and facilitating those transactions to the point where we were able to actually triple their client list. Then I put in an offer to buy a piece of the factory, and that was 2 years ago. Now I think next week we're about to buy our third factory. Just doing the same exact deal was we prove ourselves that we are able to bring in the revenue. We're really good partners for these factories because otherwise they don't really know how to do the business development and sales ops that I'm really good at, and they're really good at the operations that I can lean on them on, and that's how Back and Duck started.
So that factory that you acquired a piece of, is that the one in Guangzhou? If I'm
Mhm.
saying that right? Okay. And then, as I understand it, your Alibaba sales rep became your COO, which is an unconventional way to build a manufacturing company. How
Yeah.
did those existing relationships give you an edge?
So the guy who's my CEO right now was my agent 10 years ago on Alibaba, or actually 12 years ago on Alibaba when I was sourcing clothing for my first clothing business. And over time, I just needed more help in China, and he was able to help me pro bono. Didn't charge me a cent. Like, oh, I need to source this thing. I need to source this thing. And I saw how much work he was putting in. He was extremely loyal. He's been with me for over a decade. That when I started this company, I put him as a CEO immediately. He knew all the business ins and out. He's been my eyes on the ground, boots on the ground type of guy. And so that relationship was built over a very, very long time. And the thing about building a relationship in China is very different than networking in the US. You know, in the US, you're networking with a bunch of people, you're sharing business cards, and then you guys will meet for dinners. And that's how you build a relationship in the US. But in China, it's a very long game. You kind of have to treat building relationship in China kind of like having plants in your garden. If you want really nice flowers that bloom, you have to water it over very long periods of time and take really good care of them. And so all the partners I have right now in China are people that I've worked with for the last 7 to 10 years that I've worked on the relationship side for a very, very long time. That's why we're able to come in and get the deals that we're able to get. That's how we're able to stay very, very competitive, and how I'm able to operate in China as an American citizen and have the full degree of trust I have, whereas most other people might not have.
All right, we're going to get back to Jason Wong in just a moment. But first, I want to say something. Chances are somebody probably came to mind while you were listening today to this episode. I would like to ask you kindly to forward this episode to that person, because the right idea at the right time can spark a breakthrough, and you might be the one who delivers it. Well, let me tell you about something that's changed how I think about money and how I think about business cash flow. And this is something called Bank on Yourself. And they're the sponsor of this episode today. I want you to imagine a proven strategy that's designed for entrepreneurs that lets you access your capital when you need it without banks, thank God, without gatekeepers or tedious applications. This is where a place where your money can grow every single year. It can infinitely compound the interest. It's tax-free. It gives you liquidity for investments and expansion, protects your savings from market volatility, and you can set your own terms for borrowing that money and repaying that money, and you get to stay in control. If you want to learn about how this strategy can work for your business and how your financial future can be protected, you can go check out Bank on Yourself and get a free 15-minute consult with an expert in this. And to do that, we've set up an agreement with the Bank on Yourself folks. And all you got to do is go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. That's therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. And you can book a confidential session with a specialist. That's therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. Now let's get back to the show. So Jason, 8 figures in revenue in roughly 2 years, no venture capital, no outside investors. And this is all in a world where every founder seems to be chasing a funding round. So why did you choose to bootstrap, and how did that shape your company, Packing Duck?
Oh, the honest truth is, I just don't know how to raise money.
We got an honest guy here, folks.
I don't know how to raise money. I've never raised money before, and I think the idea of owing people money is it's scary to me. I just don't like to do that. And we've always been able to build businesses without very large capitals. And honestly, to me, that's more fun. Like I like to see how much I can stretch myself with no outside capital. And we were very fortunate to be able to be cash flow positive from day one, just due to the way that we set up our business, so that we don't never really have to had any extra capital injection. But that's not to say that it's a bad idea. I just don't know how to raise money.
Well, you're also building AI tools
Mhm.
internally at Packing Duck. So, what problems are those tools solving, and is there a plan to at some point sell that technology to other companies?
That's exactly right. So the the AI tools that we're building right now are tools that will help us as a an enterprise company perform work better. But we're also creating a tool that we will eventually license out to other factories. So, like, my end goal in 5 years is not just be a factory, but to be a platform for factories, particularly for packaging. um, Packaging, or even factories in general, has been a space where technologies move very slow, because manufacturing is just a outdated industry. They move slower. It's not sexy. There's not a lot of technology providers building tools for us. And I love exploring new technology. When the AI tools came out, I was the first to explore it in our company, and I want to implement it at every single step. So the way that I think about it is, and what I tell our team is, what we're building right now is kind of like an Iron Man suit for yourself. So imagine right now you spend 40 hours to do X amount of work. What if we can do that same amount of work but in 20 hours, because we're using AI tools to automate more menial stuff like sending contracts, or looking over client chat histories, or consultations, all those things that are a lot of back and forth that honestly an AI agent can do. What if we just automate all of that? And that was the first point of building it. The second thing that we're building is an ERP slash CRM for our company that allows us to see all the business data in one single place. There's not really a good tool for manufacturers right now, so we're building that for ourselves first, using our own training data to build the tool, and then eventually we're going to license it out to other companies that want to have their own CRM. And lastly, it's the technology platform we want to build. So right now, if I were to say, Jason, go look for a great packaging manufacturer, you're either Googling or you're going Alibaba. And then once you do that, there's 8,000 different results for you. And you don't know who to trust. You don't want to spend money testing across different companies that you don't trust. So we're building that platform where eventually we become the company that is certifying these factories to be up to the standards that you know us for. So if you want to work with a pack and duck factory, you go to this website, you tell us what you want. Our AI agent will compile your needs into a proper form. And then, based on the best match and criteria, we triage the order to the right factories under our umbrella. So we own our first three factories right now, but eventually the goal is that we'll have 100 factories under this umbrella that we might not even have equity on, but by being a part of our factory network, they get access to all the client lists that we have. And our clients get access to all the factories across the world, whether it's in Turkey, Mexico, Pakistan, or wherever, that have the same level of standards in quality, in speed, in pricing that you expect from us, but now you get to access them at your own pace. That's what we're hoping to build in 5 years, and maybe that's the thing that will lead to an exit, hopefully.
Jason, what's something that you used to believe that you don't believe anymore?
Really good question. I have to really think about this one, because I don't know. I feel like from the get go, a lot of things that I believed in end up to be true. But certainly, I think the belief that I had as a kid was, and before I got into entrepreneurship, was that I had to go to school and get a good job, and because of that, I'll have a good paying job and have a good life. But I was just not good academically. I was not the smartest kid in school by any means. I didn't test well in any standardized test, and by most account, I was not going to make it. Like, I was not the kid that was meant to be successful by any of my classmates' standards, but I was still able to make it out by my own terms. And I think that was a belief that completely changed for me after I started making money on the internet. Was that this really evens out the playing ground? 20 years ago, it was unfathomable for me to be an entrepreneur without having these degrees and these connections. But now we have so much resources that changes that completely.
Yeah. What the name of this show is The Root of All Success.
Mhm.
So I've got to ask you some questions around success. What do you believe has been the one key that has unlocked success for you? So, so much more than any other.
I think the one key was going to get it. I realized that at a young age, no one's got to come feed me. No one's got to come hand me things. and I have to go out and get it. And whether that is building the right relationships, asking for the right favors, asking for help when you actually need it, and maintaining those relationships with key people in your life. I think those are things that I did really well that led to what I have now.
How do you personally define the word success?
I think for everyone's different, but for me is having the freedom of option. I think success is when I have the freedom of financial to choose to do whatever I want, to live wherever I want, and spend time with people that I want. That to me is successful.
Based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
I think so. I get to do the things that I love. I wake up in a job that I love to do. I get to spend time with people that I love to spend time with because of the flexibility and freedom I get by building my own business. And then the money's a byproduct. I think money gives me options to do things I want, to take care of the people that I want. I can retire my parents. I can take care of my friends and family if I need to. I feel very successful being able to do that.
What would be your best piece of advice for the entrepreneur listening to this show that wants to have success the way you've had it?
I think early on you have to bet on yourself. When everyone else doesn't bet on you, you're the last person that can have the control to change the trajectory of your life. So betting on yourself, learn, be in a constant mode of learning. So like anytime something new comes out, I'm always learning about how can I apply it to my business. The people who are saying, "Well, you know what, AI's just got to take our job anyways. I'm just gonna let it happen." Those are people that will actually get left behind. So like it doesn't matter if you're just having a job right now or you're building a business. Learn what's really important to change the trajectory of your business and change the trajectory of your life, and take control of it.
All right, as we get ready to finish up this episode, I have three rapid fire questions I want to ask you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, best purchase you've ever made for under 100 bucks.
um, oh man, if it was under 1,000, I was gonna say my bed. Definitely a phone stand. Oh my gosh, for
Phone
how long?
stand.
Yeah, like your finger starts deforming if you use your phone too much. I have a phone stand for everything now. Huge.
Awesome. All right, what's one product whose packaging made
Uh-huh.
you stop and think, this is brilliant?
Oh yeah, there's a phone stand company called Moft. It's about $39 on Amazon. I think it's one of the best packaging for a consumer product.
Wow, okay. Now, last one. If you could go back and give 14-year-old Jason Wong one sentence of advice before he starts selling candy in school, what are you going to tell him?
Um, Ooh, that's a really good one. I think my one sentence of advice is to save early. And this sounds like an old man advice, like save money. But like I think when I first started making money, I just didn't know what to do with it. I was lighting it on fire. But I think being more intentional of how you spend is very important, and I wish I learned that a little bit earlier.
All right, Jason, this is man, your story is really very good story. And I don't know if you realize how cool the story is and what you've accomplished. And so congratulations on your success. If people wanted to get in touch with you, how and what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, our Instagram for our company is at Duck, DUCK on Instagram, and then for me it's PUG at Pug. I look at all the DMs, so feel free to answer any questions.
All right. Well, you can check them out Instagram at Duck on Instagram or Pug on Instagram. LinkedIn, I'm Jason Wong. And then on X, if you're on X, it's Egg Rolly, Egg EGGROLI. Sorry about that. EGGROLI. But man, Jason, congrats on all your success. And I'm impressed. You know, I interview lots of people and I get good guests on here, but it's not often that I'm midway through a conversation going, holy crap, this is impressive. And you're one of those. So
Thank you.
congrats on your success. And I'm interested to see how this, that card game goes. What's the name of the card game, by the way?
It's called Not Just Sundays.
Not Just Sundays or Not Your Sunday?
Not Just Sundays.
Not Just Sundays. And where can people pick it up if they want to get a, buy it?
On our website, notjustsundays.co. It's $34, but we have wholesale too if you want to buy more than 10 for any youth groups, and we'll have discounts for that as well.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for dialing in with us and being on the root of all success today. Congrats on your success.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is like I said to Jason a minute ago, I interview lots of people on the show, and if you've been a listener for any amount of time, I've had some pretty cool guests on. I've had some guests that have some amazing stories of overcoming adversity, stories of doing pretty cool stuff. But man, this guy at 20, I think he said he's 28 years old, has accomplished all this, and he's turning companies from zero into millions, eight-figure revenue, eight-figure or more in valuation in a very, very short period of time, which should tell us all something. Is that revenue and financial, building financial wealth is not linear. You don't start with $1 and go to 2, and then 2 to 8, and then 8 to 16. Like it can be a huge jump all at once. And you just got to know the right people and be in the right places at the right time, just like he said earlier on the show. And that's kind of a callback to the way this show started. If you guys remember from listening, when I first started the show, I talked about those 5 keys to success. And one of those is right place at the right time. And he said it today without me prompting him. So thanks again to Jason for being on the show. Thank you, listener, for listening today. Make sure you go check out our sponsor for today's show at Bank on Yourself. You go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself and check those guys out. But make sure you tune in again next week when I interview yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I'm the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.